right, welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Fanon. So some news has come out. Sky Sports is reporting that the WBC president Mauricio Suliamon is requesting that the fight take place between the WBC champion Errol Spence Jr. and the winner of tonight's fight between Terence Crawford and Shawn Porter. That is pretty good news. Hopefully they can make it happen, but let's talk about the details of that in this video. Welcome back to the channel. So we are in a very, very big day for boxing right now. Tonight we've got the Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. fight taking place for the WBC championship. It's a fight that I've been looking forward to for a long time. A lot of boxing fans have been looking forward to. And once that fight is over, Terence Crawford, if he wins, and I suspect that Terence Crawford is going to win, he will now have fought, if he wins, will have fought somebody within the PBC, and so Top Rank and the PBC would have had a joint venture, and that would make it more likely, I do believe, that a unification fight can take place between Errol Spence Jr., who's the WBA and the IBF champion, and the WBO champion, Terence Crawford. And honestly, if Shawn Porter wins, and Shawn Porter is a live underdog in that fight, so I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be mind blown if, Shawn Porter did win the fight. That would be a chance for a 3-belt unification. Mauricio Suliamon, who is the president, I believe his title is the president of the WBC, says that he is hopeful, and I believe that means that he's going to request that the winner of the WBC, of that fight between for the WBO belt, fights the winner of the WBC champion, who is Errol Spence Jr. And so the good thing is, a couple things about that is, if the WBC requests that they have that unification fight, then you're not going to have to worry about a mandatory popping up if they want to do it. I think that is the most likely scenario about what is going to happen next, regardless of whether the WBC requested it or whether they're hopeful that it can happen. Whatever the verbiage is that they're using, I don't even think that that's the main reason why I believe that this fight is going to happen. Number one, the rumor is, I've not heard this verified by somebody in Errol Spence Jr.'s camp, but my understanding is that Errol Spence Jr. is supposed to be at the fight between Shawn Porter and Terence Crawford, and then when the fight is over, Errol Spence Jr. is going to try to get in the ring and call out whoever the fighter is, whether that is Shawn Porter or whether that is Terence Crawford. And I do believe that if it is Shawn Porter, I don't believe that there's a rematch clause in this fight, because it's a mandatory title fight, and usually when you have the rematch clauses are for fights where it's not a mandatory. I think the only time I've ever heard of that happen is maybe Matchroom does that on their cards. It seems like Matchroom has a rematch clause no matter what happens in there, but typically you don't see those in a fight that's been mandated. So more than likely, the fighter of Terence Crawford, the winner of that fight, is going to be free to have him. So whether it's Terence Crawford or it's Shawn Porter, that guy should be available to fight Errol Spence. And also, Errol Spence Jr. was looking to get, the unification for the WBA title. If you recall, that was what, one of the holdups that there was in the Errol Spence Jr. Terence Crawford fight for the last several years, is that Errol Spence Jr. said that he was going to clean up his side of the street. And after he cleaned up his side of his street, then he was going to be there to fight Terence Crawford. Well, he's cleaned up 2 of the belts. He has the IBF and the WBC, but he doesn't have the WBA. Unfortunately for Errol Spence Jr., the WBA has ordered unification fights for their belts between Yordenis Ugas and I believe Stenosis is the first fight with the #1 contender, Stenosis, for Ugas. And then even if Ugas wins that fight, or if Stenosis wins that fight, the next fight is going to be Butiev, who beat Jamal James for the WBA regular belt. So, that long and short of it is that WBA belt is just not available to be unified. So, I don't know where Errol Spence Jr. is going to go other than to the WBO belt if provide, because if he's going to continue on with his straps, with the whole idea of, it being strap season. So from Errol Spence Jr.'s point of view, I think that he wants to make that fight. If the WBC wants to make the fight, that's even better. Now, the only question is going to be out there is what exactly, Terence Crawford's point of view would be on the matter. As far as Shawn Porter's on the record, already on the record, saying that if he beats, that he wants that rematch with Errol Spence Jr. They had a very, very close fight. He believes that he won that fight. It was a split decision win for him. So, and it's a fight that, quite honestly, I don't think a lot of people would have a problem seeing run back, especially if he's able to beat Terence Crawford and there's another belt in there. So if it's Shawn Porter that wins the fight, that's almost a guarantee that that is going to be, that is going to take place. Terence Crawford, on the other hand, has sounded a little bit more iffy about what he wants to do. He talks about fighting. He said multiple things that he could be doing. He could move up to 154 pounds. That's one thing that he said he might do. Other things that he said he wanted to do was to fight Keith Thurman. He had actually at one point in time believed that Keith Thurman was a bigger fight than Errol Spence Jr. And recently he said that he believed that the Keith Thurman fight was bigger than the Shawn Porter fight. He also says that, he's past the idea of fighting Errol Spence Jr. And plus there's also, aside from all of that, there's the financial issue that comes into play between Errol Spence Jr. and Terence Crawford, and all of the conversation that those guys were having about, the split for the fight and whether it was going to be a 60-40 split, be a 50-50 split or whatever. Now, I've said this in a video before that I don't really know if push comes to shove whether that's going to be an issue with Errol Spence Jr. or not. I think when he said, when he was making the statements about 60-40 and you'll get, and that's if I think so. If not, you keep talking, it'll be 70-30. I think he was saying that when it was a little bit further away from the actual negotiations and before it was a situation where Errol Spence Jr. wanted that fight and he wanted that fight right then. Now, another thing that is going to come into play as far as, the split of the fight is whether or not this fight, which is pay-per-view between Crawford and Porter, whether or not that actually does very well. I'm really excited for the fight. I hear a lot of conversations going on about the fight around, people that are subscribers to this channel and subscribers to other channels that I watch and really hardcore boxing fans. But, I don't get, the buzz. I don't really get the buzz for the fight, getting much wider than that, if you know what I mean. Like when Canelo Alvarez is fighting, one of the ways that I can always tell if this fight is really popular with like casual boxing fans is I go to the videographers' channels. I'll go to Fight Hype, or I'll go to ES News, I'll go to Fight Hub, where they put up the video clips of the interviews and all that, and just kind of get a sense of how many people are looking at those videos to see, pardon the pun, what the hype is around the fight. When you have Manny Pacquiao, there's hundreds of thousands of views on videos for Manny Pacquiao for the week before. So there's a lot of interest with Manny Pacquiao. Canelo Alvarez, kind of the same thing. You see big numbers for people that are watching those. But so I went and looked this weekend, and it's a lot less for the lead up for Terence Crawford versus Shawn Porter than it was. So, hopefully this thing can do really good numbers and can justify in the mind of the PBC that Terence Crawford is a big enough draw where they can work out enough money and maybe enough guaranteed money to make the fight happen. But I know that that's also a little bit of a barrier to it. But I'm happy that the WBC says that they want it. It'd be interesting to know what the WBO's take is on it. But anyway, that's my take on the matter. You let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.